Okay, I got my 98 GP1200 engine. I'm guessing it leaned out on this carburetor in the back. Look at this screw there. See if you can tell the difference. No, it doesn't look. I don't know. Usually when it does the hole in the piston like this one did, it was a lean condition. These pistons are beautiful. They're not even scarred, but this one went in the back. So I got to pull this carburetor, build it. I showed a picture of the piston to Mark at Ericsson's Machine and Performance. He said, hey, you really need to take a look at that crankshaft in the bottom end. I didn't want to do that, but I'm going to listen to somebody with years more experience than me and go ahead and pull this engine apart, because when he saw the piston, he said, you know, it could be that one of the races from one of the bearings came up and did that. You know, it could be that the piston itself just came apart, or, you know, a pin or something came out. I don't know. The cylinders are coming back today, the cylinder set. So it's going to be bored over one size up. So these pistons, I can't use these anymore. So I've got to pull these two pistons, pull the carb, pull the starter, pull the front stator cover. This is a beautifully clean engine. It's unbelievably clean to be so old. I really want to see how many hours are on that ski if it has an hour meter on it, because I'm thinking it can't have many at all. I've never seen such an old ski in such great shape. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to do now. Pull these two pistons, pull the carb, and all the other things I said. Oh, and I've got to get my coupler tool out and remove the coupler. It's always best to remove these when the head is still on, because if you put the impact on it and have these pistons sitting like this, the chatter from the impact will crack the bottom parts of your pistons. So I've got to get them off before I remove that, so that I don't do any damage to these, because these are actually good used parts here for these two pistons. All right, so as I was getting ready to do this, my parts just got back from Ericsson's. So I'm 1 millimeter oversized now on my cylinder, and you got to be careful with this one, because this is real thin, so you don't want to set it down on something and damage this. Look at that. There it is. It's got all the little stuff, styrofoam I got to clean off of it, but all that just gets you excited when you get all your parts. And I think I've got everything here, unless I find something wrong with the crankshaft, which I'm going to go ahead and dig into. And I've got everything here. And all WSM and WSM pistons don't use thrust washers. So the one piston's trashed. These two are still good, but I can't use them. Those are standard bore. I'm 1 millimeter over now. Also, Mark sent me a present. Let's show this. I should get my tripod back out. Yeah, let me do that. Where did I put that thing? It's behind me. It's behind me, so let's see if I can do this on camera. I recommend his work, his shop. That falling off. But he sent me a t-shirt. There you go. Ericsson Machine and Performance, guys. He knows what he's doing with these jet skis. He can build you a performance engine. He can do your machine work, what have you. He does get backed up with work sometimes, so be patient. But he does very good work. I've been impressed with his work so far. So I do recommend Ericsson's Machining Performance to send your jugs or whatever off to get worked. So let's get with it on this. Get those pistons out. Get that PTO coupler off. So what do is you go in this relief here. I'm using a pick. You can use a small flat blade. And you get in here and you want to hold your finger over this hole because these clips will fly. You want to pop that circlip out. There it is. Comes right out. And then once you've got that out, you can come in from the other side and slide your wrist pin out. Be careful if you've got thrust washers, they'll go down in the bottom. Let's see if this one even has them. Yeah, it has them. I heard it drop. Thrust washers, I've had those drop on more than one occasion. There should be two of them. So maybe one did drop, or maybe it stuck to this. There it is. Stuck to the rod. So since I'm going to keep these, they're good parts. You can see they're not all scored up. They're beautiful. So I'll put the thrust washers back on. Actually, I'll put this bearing back on too. And then take that circlip, put it back in here. And I'll put this in one of those piston boxes and stick it up on the shelf. I know it's a good used part. Seems like all my builds, I'm going with all brand new parts all the time. But maybe I need to start a used parts sale on eBay or something. Or I don't know, it'd be nice to go to a swap meet, swap parts with people somewhere at some point in time too. Trade for things that you need. Anyway, that's how you get those off. I won't video the second one. Same procedure. All right, I got to take this carb off. I've got the six 12mm nuts that bolted on. It comes loose, and then it's got 3 separate lines. Each carburetor has its own pulse line. Here's one, here's one, here's one. So I'm going to cut these tie wraps, pop those off, pull the carburetor up off of there. So a little different than most of the ones I see. They got a rail, and the pulse, they just get the 2's the most I've ever seen on one. So that's new to me, seeing three pulse lines. Okay, the carb is off. I had to get it out of the way so I can get ready to do the cylinder set, put the pistons on. This is kind of in the way. Well, with it leaning this way, I guess I could have tilted it the other way. But I've got to build the carb anyway, so it had to come off. Time to put the pistons on. Okay, so I do my builds with 2-stroke oil. When I'm going back together, I've already dipped this one in the 2-stroke. Insert it. Always read your instructions that come with your pistons. It tells you plainly that there are no thrust washers used with these WSM pistons. And if you have a special chrome ring, it goes in the top. It tells you which way to face the piston when you're building it as well. So here's your new pistons. There's an F that faces toward the front like that. There's your arrow that points toward the exhaust right there. And then we'll see what kind of rings they've got. There's your circlips, wrist pin. Let's see what kind of rings they've got. These are 1mm over. I always like to take the piston and slide it into the cylinder without rings on it to make sure it fits. That way, in case there was any mistakes made, you can catch it before you go trying to stick everything together. All right, and these rings are the type that have They're a little different. No, they're angled. They're the angled, standard angles. See the groove, the slant. And that'll go around your little roll pins in the piston. Roll pin, roll pin. So these are both the same. Doesn't matter which one goes where. I'll put them on the piston just like this, because the roll pin's at the top. Slide it on. I always put the bottom one on first. Get my ring in. So there's that one ring. And of course, when you're squeezing it, you go together like this. This one's going to be hard because it's 3 cylinders all at once. I really need to do the, you either need to help or you need to get you some Velcro and hold these rings down for you while you are doing your install. So that's how those go. F toward the front, arrow toward exhaust. No thrust washer for this one. And I do like to, as I've told you in previous videos, I like to stage a circlip in one side while I'm building and push. Actually, I think I'll do the center one first. But I push in a, that way when I do these, I'll stage a circlip on this side, come in from this side, and on this one, I'll stage a circlip on this side and come in from this side. So I'll do my center piston first. Just so, it just, I don't know, to me, it's an order of doing things that make you see easier on yourself. You can do it however you want to. That's how I do it. So the first one isn't going to matter which side. I'll just put a circlip in with my opening and circlip the C part, 12 o'clock position. Make sure you're wearing eye protection when you do this, and that you get that circlip fully seated. Keep your finger covering it while you're working on it, because these circlips, if it pops out, it's going to go flying and you're never going to find it. Especially in a shop like mine with a dirt floor. I've lost many little things in here that will never see the light of day again, I suppose. But that's it. I'll work this on and I'll come back. That one's in. I don't know if you can see the C opening is in the 12 o'clock position, roughly. A little off. These circlips on this 1200 are inset a lot further than all the other engines I've worked on. So there's that. And then, so this one's going to go on like this. Don't have to worry about thrust washers on this one, so it's a little bit easier. The WSM pistons. Get your wrist pin started. Oh boy, let me get it started out here. It's a tight fit for some reason. Let's see. There it goes. It's a perfect machine fit. Get this in there. Start going in with this. Make sure my bearing's in place. Push it on through. It'll stop on your circlip. Now you install the other circlip on this side. Bearing in mind, you're wearing your eye protection and keeping your holes covered with your fingers to keep your clip from flying into oblivion. And that box I'm going to use for my good used parts and put them over on a shelf somewhere. Okay, all of the pistons are in. The F's are facing to the front of the engine. The arrows are pointing toward the exhaust. Here's an important tip I want you to make note of. Every time you do these circlips, I want you to look I can get some light on it here. You'll think they're seated. This isn't focusing perfectly, but that ring is not in all the way. It's, well, maybe it is now. But anyway, double check your circlips with a bright flashlight. There it goes. And use your little screwdriver to push them in the grooves. Because if you don't have those seated all the way, that thing's going to come out and the piston's going to come apart on you. Very critical that your circlips are fully seated. Always double check them with a bright light and push on them with a screwdriver and make sure they're seated. All right, now that the pistons are on, it's time to put the gasket. This is a paper one. I prefer metal ones, but we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping that this will be easier than the Kawasaki triple that I've done, because the head is actually lighter. All right, so my gasket surfaces are clean. Keep in mind you've got to line up for your dowel pins that are on your head. I'll take that and let's show you. There and there. A lot of times it's best to take those off before you send them to the machine shop. Looks like I sent it with them on. But anyway, they're going to line up in those holes. And it's possible to have the gasket upside down, and then those aren't going to fit like they're supposed to. So now I've got to work this head on here. And it's kind of hard to do with one person. I don't even know that I want to video that, because it's probably going to be very time consuming. But I will take 2-stroke and oil up all these. You've got to make sure your rings haven't turned out of position to be around your roll pins. That's one of the biggest issues that you're going to have going back on. And they all do. They all seem to get out of alignment. Just, I don't know, they do. So get them all lined back up and get ready to slide the head on. Now what you want to do is stage it so that, how I've done it before, is you got your highest one, second highest, and then down. I've done it before without help with a Kawasaki, and that head is much heavier because I think it's cast iron, and this is all aluminum, so it's a lot lighter. I mean, a lot lighter than a Kawasaki head. So I'm going to get the 2-stroke, lube up my pistons, and then I'm going to do this. Like I say, I don't think I'll video it because I think it's going to take a while to do it. It would be wonderful if I had the Velcro strips, but I don't. All right, we're working on the GP1200 engine. And what I have learned on the GP1200, of course, it's a non-power valve engine, but I didn't have crank seals when I ordered all the parts. I went ahead and ordered crank seals. I'm not going to build an engine without putting them in. This crank's in good shape. All of my bearings are smooth, but I had lost a piston on it. The back piston, if you recall from the teardown video, tore all to pieces. I can't take a chance on doing a build that this thing wasn't leaking due to a vacuum leak for a bad seal, or maybe between the cases, and that's what caused that piston to fail. I'm not taking that chance, so got the new seals in. Here's the part number if anybody cares. And it is the same seal that works on the 650, 700, 701, the 1100, and the 1200. They're all the same seal. So Yamaha used to basically keep the same seals with these old engines, apparently. And one of the things you're going to find out with this one is the torque specs. You're going to look up a 1200, and it's going to be for power valve. That's how I broke one of the head bolts putting it together. Basically, go and look up an 1100, a Yamaha 1100. It's a non-power valve. Yeah, they had an 1100 too. It's been a while. the torque specs for that are going to be the same torque specs for this, okay? So do that. Save yourself some trouble for over torquing these bolts, because the torque specs on this thing are a lot less. They're smaller bolts than on the power valve version of this engine, which has a huge crankshaft and da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so basically, I had already done the pistons and rings. I didn't want to tear down the whole engine to do the seals, so I was able to just drop the bottom, tap this out. You know, you got your procedure taking all this stuff off, but tap it out. You can slide the seals in that way without removing the pistons, okay? So that's a quick way to do your seals without tearing the whole engine apart with the piston rings and all that. It's not fun with that triple cylinder. You need help putting that thing on. You need two people, makes the job much easier. But every single bearing has a lineup pin, and the lineup pin is down in the case. So once you take it apart, you've got to get these lined back up. And you can see they're all locked in place with their lineup pin. They made it easier on those other ones where the lineup pins, you just go over to one side and it's got a little notch in the case. This took a little bit of time to get all the pins lined up, but now I've got them lined up. I'm going to do my Yamabond on a side of this, put it back together. I want to say these bolts were only like 20 foot-pounds for these, putting the cases together. I'll double check and put it in the video when I go back together with it. You see, I didn't even pull the starter out all the way, but the starter does have one bolt that'll help hold the cases together, because one's in one half, one's in the other. So you do have to take starter bolts out. I'm kind of happy. I'm excited to see this engine run, because that jet ski was beautiful when I took it apart. And you can see how clean this is still. I have not cleaned this engine. It was just immaculately clean. This may be one I hold on to. I don't know. I do sell everything I get eventually. So, all right. I'm going to do my Yamabond. This is what it looks like. And put my cases back together. All right. It is 20 foot-pounds torque for these. Like I said, Yamaha Ski Clinic online, or you just look up Yamaha 1100 torque specs, and you're going to find all the 1100 was just, this is just a slightly modified version from the 1100. All the engine looks the same, but the torque specs are going to be the same for the 1100 and the 1200 non-power valve. There you go. So I'm going to let me finish torquing this. I couldn't find my stand, but it is 20 foot-pounds. All right, so once you've got your crankcase done, 20 foot-pounds, you've got two mount brackets. It's going to go to your engine mounts. They come off in one big piece. One's got 4 bolts, one's got 5. And then again, it's got a vibration rubber damper on the bottom, like the GP800. These are 38 foot-pounds of torque, so you want to go about half, say 15, 17 with the first torquing, and then the 38 with the second torquing. So 38 foot-pounds for the brackets. They're called mount brackets. So, all right, going on with them. Okay, today's the day. 1200 engine is going to go back together. I've got to peel off my protective tape. I like to use this stuff because it'll stick to things even that are dusty and greasy. This shouldn't have been too dusty or greasy, but it works well. It tears easily, but it's good for keeping the dirt out of things. So get that off, and we will get ready to put this engine back together. I will do a quick wire brush over it and a quick rub down with what is that stuff? It's basically nail polish remover. I forget the name of it for some reason this morning. I forget names of things often. That's just the way it is from acetone. I'll rub it down with a little acetone on the rag. Get any residue off after I do the wire wheel brush, because if you remember, I broke one of the bolts due to over torquing, because I was reading 1200 torques for a power valve engine, which are different than this non-power valve. This is only a 22 foot-pound torque on your head bolts. And there's where he welded it. Got a little blackness on it, so I'm going to clean that up. And so I'm going to get the head gasket and all that ready for this. You see I'm using these plugs. We'll get the head gasket on, and then I'll be ready to do a pressure test. I'll have to block one of the vacuum. Actually, this one's got 3 vacuum lines that run to the carburetor, so 2 have got to be blocked. One is where you'll put the pressure in to do the block leak down pressure test. But then I've still got the exhaust to deal with. So, gosh, I haven't gotten a custom plate built for this. So I may have to go over there to that local metal shop and get them to make me a custom plate. They are open on Saturdays, so we'll see when I get to that part. All right, with the head gasket, since I had to pull it off and back on, I did coat it. That stuff's cured for days. And I was thinking, oh, this is wrong because this is sticking out. But there's no way to flip this gasket so that that is over on that. I think that's just tabs to pop it apart. And either way you flipped it, the gasket seemed like it would go either way. But it does have a tab on the head gasket that lines up onto this tab out in the front of the engine. But then again, you have this little piece coming off the rear, but I think a bolt goes in that for something. I'm not sure. But the head goes on. So carburetor side here, let me back out a little bit. So you got carburetor side here, the hoses go on the opposite side. See how those hoses are over there? So I guess it is possible to have the head 180 out, but I can't see anything other than lining up this tab on laying the gasket down. You do have 2 size head bolts. You've got this one, and then all the other ones are going to be this length. So you got 4 longer ones. You can see the difference. See, these have got this cut out, so they don't need that extra length, but up here, they've got to go through more material. So you've got the longer bolts that go there. And then you got all these, when you, that secondary head gasket that goes under, all these other bolts. That's how you split this apart and get that secondary gasket on there. So this is a 2-piece head on this Yamaha. The 1100's the same way, 1100 and 1200. They look identical. In fact, I got bolts off of a 1100 to take care of my broken one. So let's get this Yamaha non-power valve torque. So 22 foot-pounds. It means you're going to go halfway, 11 foot-pounds or so with your first torquing, and then once again, Yamaha. See the numbers? Torque sequences are stamped on the top, and always they're going to be in the center where you're going to start. See, there's number 1 right there if you're doing the first one, and 2. But here's 2 for the ones that bolt it to the block. So that means 1's going to be right over here, right there. There you go. So you start at the center, 1, 2, work your way out, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see here, is this what this is? There's 5 and 6 right there. So this is 3 and 4 right here. Start center, working your way out with your torques, always. Okay, so I just revisited the Yamaha Ski Clinic 1100 site. Cylinder head, cylinder body, which is this bolt down here where the body bolts down to the bottom, that's a 29 foot-pound. The top cylinder head is 22. This one, the little short ones, the little, not this one, these that pull off the top. So this is a 2-part. So there's 3 different torques, okay? 29, 25, 22. Got it? So 22 For the very tippity top part, 25 for this middle section here, 29 for the bolting it to the block. There's your foot-pounds. Remembering half torque as you're going on for your first tightening. And there you go. So no more confusion. 25 foot-pounds, 22 foot-pounds. That's it. Okay, so after you got all that, you do have these two tiny little ones that right here. That's 5.8 foot-pounds that are on those, because they're little skinny little bolts. You just don't want to break them. So 5.8 foot-pounds for these two up here. And I guess those two also kind of give you an indication that that's the front of the head. They go up over there. Anyway. All right, so everything's torqued here. I haven't done the two tiny ones yet. I need to go ahead and do that. You're not going to find a foot-pound torque wrench is going to go to 5.8, so take an inch-pound torque wrench, get you a converter online, and convert it to the 5.8. Stage your new, obviously clean the surface. Make sure your dowel pins are in place. You can stage your gasket up on the engine block like this. Clean all your surfaces for your exhaust that's going back on, and then we'll bolt that up and I'll get you the torque specs for it. That's the next step. All right, we've gotten to the next part of our little journey here. See, it's coming together. It tells you in the Yamaha Ski Clinic there's 12 of these and 22 foot-pounds torque, because these are somewhat skinny bolts. There's 12 of them. So 12 of them at 22 pounds. First torquing will be 11. So I put a couple of them in to keep it on so it wouldn't fall off. Get the camera set up. We'll put 12 of these on. They look like they've got a 12mm head on them. And torque them to 22 pounds, 22 foot-pounds. Remembering we start in the center, work our way out with the torques. That's the way it always is. There are torque sequences marked on the case, just like on the cylinder head. So Yamaha is really good about that, giving you some information to help you do the job. But I still had all my bolts because nobody came out here and messed with anything in the months that it's been since I took this thing out. This is the one I'm really excited to see running. And the one that I may, like I said, tend to want to hold on to, but nah, I'll sell everything or anything I got. But this was a beauty, just a beauty ski when I got it, just in such good shape. So we'll torque those and then we'll get to the next one. All right, you've got two 12mm bolt heads that are way inset down in here. Those are the ones that, on all the ones I work on, I wrap the top with electrical tape so I can get the thing started down in the hole. That appears to be 34 foot-pounds for those two, and then all of your ones that go up on the top to bolt to the head, those are 29. They're a little bit thicker bolt than your standard. So 29 for all four of these, and they're 14mm heads. And then you've got 12mm heads. It's still a fatter bolt, but you got the 12mm head, I guess, so your wrench will fit in it and on around it. 34 foot-pounds for those. And then you'll be done bolting basically your whole exhaust assembly on. Now I got to come up with a big plug, big expander to put in here and shut off pressure. I'm going to tighten my bands. You could do it here with a custom plate. You get these bolts here. You can take this part of the exhaust off make a metal custom plate to do your pressure test. Or if you can find a way to plug this, and do it. So, looks like that's the way I'm going to try it. If I can find a big enough something to shove in there and expand. I know they make those weird air-powered expansion things. I've got one over here, but it is not nearly big enough. You can put this in a pipe. See how it threads on, and then you just shoot air to it, and this will swell up on the pipe. So they make stuff like that, but that one certainly won't work for this situation. All right, 5.8 inch-pounds for these, 69.6 inch-pounds. So there you go. Get you an inch-pound. That's easily found by just doing a Google search. 5.8 inch-pounds to, or foot-pounds convert to inch-pounds. That's how I did it. You can do the same thing. All right, on this build, I had removed these little tiny ones. They're 69 inch-pounds as well for these little. Okay. 22 foot-pounds for these. 69 inch-pounds for these. Well, it tells you in Newton meters what it is right there. Front cover's on, 50 pounds for the torque on the big bolt that's in there, 50 pounds. What else am I thinking here? This is just a ground strap. I believe it just goes right there. I've got to find the bolt for that. I'll go ahead and get my carburetor bolted on. These just had tie wraps holding them in. Kind of interesting, but that's what they had. You can see that's even though it's there. I'm guessing those are cooling lines. I'm not positive. I think I'll change this tie wrap because I can spin it. This one I can't. Well, maybe I'll just change them anyway. Well, the tie wrap doesn't cost that much. So, all right, let's go ahead and continue to go on. And I'm sure these have a specific torque. It's going to be somewhere around 22 to 25. I didn't look it up. There you go. As I've said in other videos, there's always something with mechanicking. One of my bolts broke when I was bolting the carburetor on with studs. So now I got to get this extracted. And in order to do that, I got to take this off. Well, I was taking it off to take it to the place where they'll do a weld job and twist that out. I don't like trying to drill, because you drill and screw up, you're going to screw up this aluminum. And I don't have a press and something to set this in where you could do it perfection in a press. You try to do this with a hand drill, you're probably going to screw the threads up. So now I've got to spend money on that, and I've got to get a new reed gasket. This one's funny because the reeds bolt to this with little Phillips screws, and then you got the one gasket underneath. So I just threw all the reeds in here like they came off. And now more work to do. It's just more money and more time, right? There you go. Always happens when you're mechanic and something breaks. And I did not even put a lot of pressure on that. It just snapped. So this will not be going in the ski today at this point.